So please state your name and your job in this.
My name is William Edward Hahn, and I'm an assistant research professor and one of the co-founders and co-directors of the Machine Perception and Cognitive Robotics Laboratory.
So what kind of experiments do you guys work on here?
Our primary experiment right now involves self-driving cars, autonomous vehicles, systems that can navigate on their own. We work on something called neural networks, which is now has the meaning of deep learning. And it's a technology where you can teach a computer system what it is that you need done. Historically, you would have need in painstaking details to describe every step the computer would have to take to solve a certain task. Now you just show the computer what the task is that you need to be done, and it can actually mathematically figure out how to do that.
Okay, so it's somewhat like a bit like artificial intelligence in a way?
Exactly. So artificial intelligence is sort of the historical name for this field, coming since around the 50s. And I think a lot of people get a little nervous of that. Maybe Terminator comes to mind.
Yeah,
And
Hollywood and religion have both kind of demonized AI. Is there anything that you can say to lessen the stigma of it?
Yeah, Isaac Asimov, he wrote I, Robot, the classic from the 40s. And he said, I don't fear computers, I fear the lack of them. And I think in that sense, AI doesn't scare me. What scares me is how few humans are aware of what AI is, what it's capable of, and the progress that it's making. I think if we can have more people understand this and not be afraid of it, it's something exciting. It's a very amazing time to be alive to witness this change. It's like seeing electricity show up or the invention of the automobile. This is a very dramatic change for the history of our species and our planet, and it's really exciting to be a part of that. I don't think it's something that we need to be nervous about any more than people 100 or so years ago needed to be nervous about the steam engine. People were very worried about mechanization of the factories the first time, so to speak, in the Industrial Revolution. In the original weaving, the weavers were the ones first displaced by the automatic loom. And the famous story goes that the French, they threw their little wooden shoes, these sabots. And they threw their sabots into the machine, and they were the original saboteurs. And they sabotaged the equipment because they were so worried they were going to be out of a job that they decided to break the computer. At the time, the computer, which was essentially a 3D printer.
So how is it possible that you can do this kind of research now, whereas you couldn't in the 70s or even the 90s?
I think really the number one thing is costs have come down. If you go back to the 70s and 80s and say you want to do this research, you would need hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. We've had researchers come and visit, and they said that as recent as the mid-90s, the little robotic system they worked with cost $100,000. It was tied to the ceiling with a bunch of cables, and it took about 15 seconds to take a single photograph. Our systems now are at consumer-level prices, and they can run in essentially real time, taking many, many photographs a second, process them all, and spit out actions. And so we think it's really the video game technology. If you go back 20, 30 years ago, not as many people would have predicted how much of the market demand there would be for high-resolution, high-quality video games. And that's really driven down the price of the computing machinery.
So I guess you answered the question, why now? But why do AI at this point as opposed to another project of the like?
So there's definitely certain topics that are sort of ripe for the decade you're in. If this was 2005 and you could see things clearly, you'd say social media is really going to be the next big thing for the next 10 years. I think right now where we're at, deep learning I think is going to revolutionize most industries on the planet. Autonomous vehicles is going to be here sooner than later, but it's really going to displace a lot of other things that not many people are aware of, particularly things like radiology. So to be a radiologist, you have to go to 4 years of college, and then you go to 4 years of medical school, and then you'll do a year studying for your exams, and then you'll do a 4-year residency. So it takes a very, very long time to gain that level of skill as a human being. There's now sort of software that is as good as those humans. And radiology is a very high-paying career, so there's going to be a lot of market forces to automate that. And so one of our goals is to warn, essentially, the next generation of young people and students that when they go out, they're going to have to get jobs in the 20s and 30s. What is that world going to look like? And I think that those marketplaces are going to be dominated by AI and deep learning. I think it's not that far away. We expect to have an AI coworker, someone you might even have to report to as a boss, and something that it'll be able to do its job well, and you'll have to sort of work with it.
That'd be kind of scary.
It is, but it's also could be reassuring. Imagine you go into the hospital and you have a couple doctors there take a look, and then you also have a couple other systems that also chiming in and confirming and say, yeah, I think the doctor's got it right. Or maybe the doctor missed something. You've got a particular family history, or you're on this, supplements, and you've had this prior surgery. Maybe this is a better medical treatment path for this individual.
So what's the kind of hardware that you guys use? I mean, this would probably take millions of computations to even work through.
Yeah, it's amazing, how fast computers are. We actually count now in what they call the teraflops, which is trillions of math problems a second, essentially. And we use the NVIDIA technology in our laboratory. So we have these double-stacked GPUs that we run. And these systems were originally designed for video games and virtual reality, but it turns out they're now the fastest calculator on the planet. And so we can get about 9 to 10 trillion math problems every second on one of these chips. And that's just really extraordinary when you think about it. There was a time when a computer was a person, like a plumber is a person, or electrician is a person, or baker. A computer was a person who did computing. And if you ever find an old dictionary that's 50 years old or so, and you flip through it, you can sometimes find the old definition of a person who computes. And so they used to have these rooms full of people that hand calculate these math problems. And it turns out you can do about one every 20 seconds. And that's not very fast, right? And so some people can, if you hurry, you can get a couple in faster, but day out over a long time, about 20 seconds is what you need to do a problem. Right? So you think about how many trillions can these calculators do in that same amount of time. So I think to be almost the funny thing is we're still teaching young people how to do that old-fashioned style of computing. The idea that a person was the computer and they'd get a bunch of scratch paper and a pencil and they would do the arithmetic. And 100 years ago, you could get a good job. If you had good handwriting and you could do arithmetic, you could get a job in a lot of different places. But I don't think people tell the story enough of the development of computers and calculators and how cheap calculators are today. When I was in school, the teachers always said, well, you won't always have a calculator. Now, everyone does have a calculator. And I would argue that if you can't get access to a 4-function calculator in 2017, you probably have some more important problems to worry about. And so I think as a culture, we need to accept computers and calculators and in computational thinking. Let young people know that when they go and get a job, they're not going to be handed a pencil and asked to do arithmetic. That's gone away. That went away many, many, many years ago. Even 50 years ago, people had mechanical calculators. And so if it was really important, it was done by machine even 50 years ago. So I think that's the big story here, is that AI is here. It's here for good. And we need to just get everybody prepared for that.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.